I used to think a model was finished once the CRUD was done. Users could create it, edit it, delete it, so I move on to the next features. Then I started building TaskForge and realized CRUD wasn't the difficult part after all. The difficult part was defining what a task was actually allowed to do. Can someone complete a task that hasn't been started? Can achieve tasks be edited? Can cancel tasks be active again? Those aren't Laravel questions, they are business questions, and answering them completely changed how I design my applications. Most tutorials would stop here, build the migration, create the model, add the CRUD, then move to the next entity. That's actually how many applications slowly become difficult to maintain, because a business entity isn't just data. It's something that changes over time. If you don't define those changes early, the rules end up scattered across controllers, service, and random conditionals. So your application could get a bit messy. So in my task force project, I'll be using the task entity to illustrate what I mean in this video. So instead of thinking in CRUD operations, I started thinking in business transitions. A task is created, someone gets assigned that task, work begins, the work finishes, eventually it's archived. Every one of those transitions represents a business rule, and every rule has to be enforced somewhere, which is why I have the cancel task action, complete, create, delete, reassign, start task, update task status action. And I will also have enum for the task status, representing what current state is the task in right now and whether it can be moved from that state. And then I have the permissions as well. Plus, I have the policies to implement those rules. So once the life cycle became clear, the architecture almost designed itself. Every action represents a valid transition. Every policy determines who can perform that transition. The status enum, as I said, reflects the current point in the life cycle. Then the UI will just simply expose what's valid at that moment. Nothing exists by accident. Everything traces back to the business rules I defined while I was building the task entity. Earlier in this series, we talked about moving business logic out of controllers. Then we looked at choosing between services and actions. But those decisions actually come after something more fundamental. You first need to understand how the business itself behaves, because if the life cycle is unclear, it doesn't matter how clean your architecture is, you still organize the wrong logic. So you have to get your life cycle clear and straightforward and really complete. Then you can move on to adding other features in your architecture. Like from the task lifecycle, I make sure the task is created in the system, it is assigned to someone immediately as it is created, then the person can start on working on the task by starting the task and then can change to complete the task. It can be archived for the future. We'll thus log in the task and the current states that the task has been transitioned into. So before I move on to the next entity in TaskForge, I ask myself one question. Can this entity live its entire life inside my applications and not can users create it, edit or delete it? But can they assign it? Can they start it? Can they complete it? Can they archive it? Like, can they log it? Can permissions be enforced? Can invalid transitions be blocked? Does every business rule have a home? Once all of these questions have been answered, then I can move on to building more features on the entity itself, or building the next feature, building the next entity, and completing its life cycle. The life cycle will define all valid states and transitions. The actions implement each followed business operation. The policies control who can perform each operation. So that's basically role-based access control. Then the UI will show only what's allowed at each stage. Then I have notifications to inform users about important changes and events. In the next video, we're going to look at another mistake I see in growing Laravel applications. Developers often think their database structure is their architecture. Well, it isn't. I'll show you why those are two very different things and why confusing them creates problems long before your application starts to scale. If you're following this TaskForge architecture series, subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.